Hi, my name is B Rose, and welcome to Truth Talk. Today we're going to be talking about pagan holidays, specifically Christmas. I figured now was a good time to talk about this since we're getting closer and closer to Christmas. And there's a lot about this holiday that people don't know. They don't know the origins or the traditions of it and where they come from. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Okay, so Christmas. Everybody knows about Christmas. At least I think most people do. You've got the Christmas tree, you've got the lights, you've got Santa, reindeer, parades, snow, presents, everything. You've got it all wrapped up into one. You get to see your family, you get to eat good food, and you get to open gifts. So what could possibly be wrong with Christmas? Well, for starters, none of the things that I just said actually go together. They are all from different traditions and different pagan rituals and holidays, not to mention several different people and gods that were worshipped in the past. All of these things were separate and have now been mixed together into one holiday that presents itself as being a Christian holiday to celebrate Jesus' birth. The only problem is, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. Jesus was born when it was still slightly warm outside. It was the end of summer going into fall. So this holiday is not about Jesus. So then, who is this holiday about, and what is this holiday about? That's what we're going to talk about. Let's start off by going back in time, way back to the BC era. People who lived up north at this time endured very harsh, dark, cold winters. There was lots of people who died or caught diseases because of the cold. So it was a very scary time for people in the winter. So to combat this, they would pray to certain deities and celebrate the winter solstice. And the winter solstice would represent the first turn towards having more daylight. Since it was so dark and cold all of the time, any sort of extra sunlight was greatly appreciated by these people. So they would celebrate this winter solstice to represent hope, but to also pray to deities to keep their families safe, keep their homes safe, keep themselves safe from bad winters and from getting sick and having people die. So this type of worship happened all over the world at this time. In the north, they celebrated the Feast of 12 Nights, which went from December 25th to January 6th. In ancient Greece, they would celebrate the Bacchanalia, which was held for their god Bacchus. And this was the god of wine, sport, and play to them. The Romans would celebrate Saturnalia for their god Saturn, which was the main sun god. During this time, people would worship in all different kinds of ways. They would build bonfires, they would worship nature. And the one thing that people noticed was even when everything else died in the winter, there was one tree that survived, which was the fir tree, the pine tree. And they thought this tree had special power in it, so they would cut it down and bring it in their house. And then they would put a light on top of it. They would also make what we would call mistletoes and put them over the doorways. They would call these tawees, which is more along the lines of an amulet. So all of these different ways of worshiping came from different societies around the world. but clearly all of them were worshiping pagan gods. None of them had anything to do with Jesus. They actually happened before Jesus came. And so this Christmas type worship has been going on for a very long time. So these pagan holidays and traditions kept growing and morphing and spreading. But at the same time, so was Christianity. And as we move past the time of Jesus, by the 1400s, many of the pagan religions had disappeared or had merged with the church, which is one of the ways that the church got pagans to convert in the first place, was by allowing them to keep their traditions. And so all of these holidays and practices got mixed into one another, which is how we got the holidays that we have today. And all of the holidays that we have today are rooted in paganism, and they have nothing to do with Jesus, they have nothing to do with God. And the Bible even warns us against Christmas. Jeremiah 10 says, "For the customs of the people are vanity. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with an axe by the hands of a craftsman. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so it cannot move." And if that doesn't sound like Christmas, I don't know what does. So these are not traditions that we as Christians need to follow. I know this can be hard at this time of year because everyone is doing the same thing. They're out shopping and decorating and getting ready for this day. But it's best just not to indulge. And I'm not saying not to spend time with your family or not to enjoy it to the best of your ability, but just keep in mind where all of these things come from, and that these pagan practices are essentially occult practices, which is not something that we need to be involved in. These are not traditions that we need to keep carrying on. We don't need to pass these down to our children. I know everyone probably has some good memories from Christmas as a child, but that doesn't mean we need to keep passing on pagan holidays. Okay, so now that we've established that these traditions have nothing to do with Jesus, they have nothing to do with the Bible, you might have some questions on where some of this stuff comes from. I did talk a little bit about the Christmas tree and the mistletoe already and like decorations, but one question you might have is, who is Santa Claus? What is going on? Why is this man on everything during Christmas time? Why are there stories about him? Who is this? Well, this has everything to do with what we talked about earlier. So these ancient civilizations that worshipped different gods during the winter solstice. So in this picture, this is Bacchus. So this is the ancient Greece god that was the god of wine, sport, and play. And as you can see, he definitely has a resemblance to Santa. He's got the long beard, he's heavier set, and so there's a lot of resemblance there. So this is our first Santa. Next up, we have the Roman god Saturn, who is their god of agriculture. And this is who they celebrate Saturnalia for. As you can see, he is wearing red and has the long beard, not to mention the pine leaf in his hand. So this is our number 2 Santa. This is Mithra, another Roman god, and he is their sun god. The Romans actually celebrated 2 different holidays in the month of December. The first one was Saturnalia, which was a 2-week-long festival, and it was for Saturn. And then on December 25th, they would celebrate the birth of Mithra, which is where we get December 25th for Christmas. So that is his resemblance. As you can see, he doesn't look like Santa except for being portrayed in red, but this is where we get Christmas Day from. Lastly, this is Nimrod, who is the great-grandson of Noah in the Bible. He was king over the land of Shinar, and he was also the ruler who commissioned the construction of the Tower of Babel, which led to his reputation as a king who was rebellious against God. And as you can see, he also shares resemblance to a Santa figure. He's obviously got the long beard, he's got the pine tree in his hand, and he's even got a deer. So this is number 4 on our list. Okay, I know I said Nimrod was the last one, but I wanted to go ahead and add Odin in here. So Odin was a deity worshipped by early German pagan tribes, and he was portrayed as an old man with a long white beard and an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir, who he would ride through the skies on. And during the winter, kids would fill their boots with carrots and straw and leave them by the chimney for Sleipnir to feed on. And then Odin would fly by and reward the children with small presents in their boots, kind of like what people do today with stockings. So I hope that clears up a little bit about the whole Santa thing. It's not just one person, it's a lot of false gods, all kind of mixed into one, which is exactly what the rest of Christmas is, not to mention other pagan holidays that we celebrate. But anyways, I thought this picture was appropriate. I'm sure some of you have seen this already, or at least heard about it. This is from the new Santa Claus movie. It is a scene where they are singing and they are supposedly unintentionally spelling Santa wrong, and then they switch the 2 last letters around. But I feel like this kind of sums up the whole Santa debate anyways. It doesn't matter which false god it is, because it all leads back to Satan. Because this is an occultic holiday. This is a satanic holiday, which is exactly what this is telling you. They are putting it in plain sight for you to see. I don't have a ton to say about this. I just wanted to point out that it is very much in our faces, and that Santa Claus represents pagan gods along with Satan. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about presents. Everyone knows that on Christmas you exchange gifts, and this has its roots in the pagan rituals that we talked about that are held during winter. So when the pagans came into the Christian church and brought their traditions with them, one of the things they brought was these gift-giving rituals. And the Christians justified this by saying it was just like when the 3 wise men brought Jesus gifts. So the gift-giving ritual continued. And then around the 1800s, when Christmas was more domesticated in the United States, the recipients of the gift giving shifted from being lower classes to children, and it was given to them by different versions of Santa Claus. And after that, it was a marketing opportunity that was created, which brings us to what we see today, where there are Santas in shopping malls and on decorations and anywhere else that people can make money. So I also wanted to talk about the Yule log. And the custom of burning the Yule log dates back to the winter solstice celebrations and the tradition of bonfires. So, this had to do with the Feast of 12 Nights that I mentioned earlier, and it called for burning a portion of the log each evening until the 12th night, which was January 6th. And then the log was placed beneath the bed for good luck and protection over the household. And some people had beliefs based on the Yule log as it burns, and by counting the sparks, they try to discern their fortunes for the new year and beyond. Next, let's talk a little bit about caroling. So, caroling comes from a pagan tradition called wassailing. And this word comes from an Anglo-Saxon phrase of was hole. I might be saying that wrong, but it translates to good health. And every year, wassailers would roam through their villages in small groups singing loudly with the aim of banishing evil spirits and wishing good health to those around them. And in theory, this might sound good, but these people were known for being extremely violent. They would show up unannounced, sometimes even break down people's doors. And I doubt by doing this they were able to banish evil spirits. Okay, next topic is the mistletoe. I'm sure by now you know where this tradition came from. Just like every other Christmas tradition, it roots back to the pagans. It seems like everyone, including the Romans, the Celts, the Druids, and the Norse, had a thing about mistletoes. It was considered to be a highly sacred plant, and it was involved in several pagan rituals. In the Roman world, the mistletoe honored the god Saturn, and to keep him happy, they would perform fertility rituals underneath the sprigs of the mistletoe. And in the world of the Druids, mistletoe symbolized peace and joy. And in the times of war, if enemies were to meet underneath the woodland mistletoe, then they would drop their weapons and form a truce until the next day. And so once again, this goes back to pagan worship of false gods and traditions. Mistletoe wasn't the only sacred plant to the pagans. Holly was another plant connected with their god Saturn. During the Saturnalia holiday, Romans would make holly wreaths to exchange as gifts for good luck. This tradition continued, and as the pagans decreased in number, it slowly became a symbol for Christmas instead of Saturnalia. Of course, they're both basically the same thing, but that is the pagan origin of holly. Lastly, let's talk a little more in depth about Christmas trees. I would consider the Christmas tree one of the main pagan idols that is worshipped around this time of year, because you see them everywhere. And this tradition has been going on for a very long time in many parts of the world. So, going back to the Romans, they celebrated Saturnalia by feasting, drinking, exchanging gifts, and they hung small metal ornaments on trees outside their home. And each of these small ornaments represented a god, either Saturn or the family's personal patron saint or god. And early Germanic tribes practiced a similar tree decorating tradition, and they used fruits and candles to honor the god Odin throughout the winter solstice. And so all of these traditions were taken and mixed together to create what we have today, which is the Christmas tree with ornaments and lights and sometimes fruit or food or popcorn, or probably fake candles nowadays, but they combined everything into one. And this is where it came from. It came from these pagan traditions, worshiping gods that have nothing to do with Jesus, and they have nothing to do with the Bible. None of this is biblical. All of this is occult practices, which is why this holiday is an occult holiday. And like I said before, I know this can be hard for people to accept because you have good memories about celebrating these things. I'm sure people have good memories with their families and their friends on Christmas, and not to mention everyone's just a little bit nicer around this time of year. But that is not the way that it should be. We should be giving and kind to people all year long, especially Christians. We shouldn't save it for one time of year. Not to mention, we don't need a bunch of pagan occult traditions to do those things. But anyways, this is the origins of the Christmas tree. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully it explained the origins of Christmas well, and how this holiday is derived from pagan practices, and that it is an occultic holiday. This is not a Christian holiday. I really can't stress that enough. There's a lot of pagan practices that have been pulled to create one, what seems to be a new holiday, but is in fact just made up of many old holiday traditions. And taking a bunch of pagan holiday traditions and merging them into one does not make them a Christian holiday. And so just be aware of these things and don't participate in them. It's just not worth it. We are warned in the Bible several times not to participate in these ancient traditions. They have no value. And so I hope that this video explained why that is. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I hoped this helped somebody out there, or helped explained or cleared something up if someone didn't understand a particular tradition. But thank you again, and God bless everyone out there, and I hope you all have a great day.